afternoon. On behalf of the Topchubashov Center, I would like to welcome all our guests and listeners on our next online roundtable dedicated to the state of affairs between Azerbaijan and Italy and overall Italian politics. And it is organized in the framework of the new elections in Italy as a follow-up of our other events organized and dedicated to the analyzing and understanding Italian politics and fostering ties between Italy and Azerbaijan. Topchubashov Center is an independent think tank based in the Republic of Azerbaijan in Baku, and it provides analysis of foreign policy and security policies of the South Caucasus, Middle East, Central Asia, and Eastern European countries, and overall geopolitics and the security studies. In today's conference, I, Shujaat Ahmadzada, will be moderator, and we're going to have 3 researchers join us with an expertise on the Caucasus, who will share the Italian interest in the region, each focusing on one country. In today's online roundtable, we have with us Simona Scotti, who is a research fellow at the Topchubashov Center, focusing on the post-conflict developments in the Caucasus and overall relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and Italian-Azerbaijan relations and Azerbaijani cooperation with the EU. And Simona has a MA in International Relations from the Foscari University of Venice. We also delighted to be joined by Cesare Figari-Barberis, who is a PhD researcher in international relations and political science at the Geneva Graduate Institute. He is researching trauma and emotions in the post-conflict South Caucasus, and he will cover the Georgian aspect of the regional relations with the Italian Republic. And our next speaker will be Valentina Chabert, who has a PhD candidate at the La Sapienza University of Rome in international comparative and public law. And she's also a freelance journalist and editor-in-chief at Opinio Juris, Italian magazine on politics and international law. I would like to thank each of you for joining us today and having your time with us. And without taking too much time with you, I'll give the floor to Simona Scotti for presenting her research on Italian-Azerbaijan relations overall. And after we'll follow with Valentina Chabert, then Cesare Figari-Barberis. Thank you. Simona, the floor is yours. You can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Shujaat, for your introduction. I'm very glad to attend this event. And during my speech, I will now talk about the Italian interest in Azerbaijan. So the relations between Azerbaijan and Italy share deep connections in several fields. And I would like to start talking about the energy relations between Italy and Azerbaijan that are now at the center of the interest, given the ongoing energy crisis in Europe. So last year, actually the 30th of December of 2020, the Trans-Adriatic pipeline started to work, and it's a pipeline that connects Azerbaijan to Italy. It transports Azerbaijani gas, and from Italy it is then distributed in Europe. And this project was welcomed by the 2 countries, and it shows a deeper level of trust, because in order to transport gas, unlike the transportation of oil, there is a requirement of investments to build the necessary infrastructures, and this requires a huge level of trust between the countries involved. And Italy considers Azerbaijan as a reliable partner, and this is why the energy cooperation between the 2 countries has increased more and more over the course of the past years. Through the TAP, Azerbaijan transports 10 billion cubic meters of gas to Europe, and 7 of them are transferred directly to Italy. and it is expected that by the end of 2022, 9.5 billions of cubic meters will be delivered just to Italy. And now there is a discussion of using the infrastructure of TOP also to transport hydrogen supplies. And in this specific period of time, when European countries are trying to diversify their energy supplier, this is a big demonstration of how Azerbaijan is strategic to Italy. Another fact that I would like to share about the energy cooperation is that the Italian company Eni is also involved in the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline, and it owns 5% of share. Other sphere related to economy that are relevant for the relations of Azerbaijan and Italy is that Azerbaijan is the main country in the South Caucasus where Italy exports its goods. 90% of the total amount of goods transferred to the South Caucasus are delivered to, are exported to Azerbaijan. And Italy and Azerbaijan trade turnover last year was more than 9,000 billion of dollars. The second partner for Azerbaijan is Turkey, and for Turkey it's less than 3 billion of dollars. Italy is the country where the majority of the Azerbaijan oil is delivered, and also for Italy, Azerbaijan is the country that supplies the biggest amount of oil to the country. After the end of the Second Karabakh War, some Italian companies have been invited to participate to the reconstruction of Karabakh and of the liberated territories. And the companies of just 4 countries were initially invited, and these countries are Turkey, China, Israel, and Italy. And the Azerbaijani authorities wanted to point out that these countries were invited because they are considered friend countries to Azerbaijan. And so we can understand the level of interest that the 2 countries have in relation to each other, in relation to the economic sphere. But the 2 countries are not connected just by economic interest. There are also relevant cultural and academic relations that unite Italy and Azerbaijan. The Italian Azerbaijani University will soon start its work, and there are a lot of Italian students that study in Azerbaijan, and there are a big amount of Azerbaijani students that study in Italy, because the 2 countries have several agreements on education. Some Italian companies are participating in the construction of museums in the liberated territories. A few days ago, I was in Adnan, and I could see the projects of related to cultural heritage that are being developed. And among these, I saw the projects that are being implemented by Italian companies. In Italy, the Azerbaijani Cultural Center has recently been inaugurated. And in Italy, the Heydar Aliyev Foundation is quite active, and it participates in the restoration of the cultural heritage in several Italian cities. And last year with the Topchubashov Center, we had an event, a forum called Italian-Azerbaijani Young Forum Dialogue, and we organized it together with Foscari University, with the back office of the Foscari University. And this event had precisely the aim to display all the relations that the two countries all not on an economic level, but the spontaneous manifestation of interest that are displayed by cultural and academic cooperation. Given what I said until now, it is evident that the political interest between the two countries needs also to be taken into account, and Italy has quite close political relations with Azerbaijan. It has supported. It has given its political support during the Second Karabakh War and also before the outbreak of the war. It has supported the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, and Italy has been part of the Minsk group that was created with the aim to find a peaceful solution to the conflict. An Italian was the first president and negotiator of the first Minsk conference. I'm talking about Mario Raffaelli. And in Italy, there is an interparliamentary group of friendship of Italy and Azerbaijan. So in Italy, we have just had new elections, and we now have a new government. And I have been asked several times if I consider that the new government will change the attitude towards Azerbaijan and towards the Caucasus in general. And my consideration is that this will not happen. In Italy, we change government a lot of time, but the foreign policy is usually maintained as it is. And in this specific period, regardless of the political preferences, I would say that politicians are aware of the need to maintain good relations with a country that supply a big part of our energy supplies. And also in the members of the Interparliamentarian Group of Friendship are mainly among the new majority, the coalition that is now at the government. The current Minister of Infrastructure, Matteo Salvini, has actually many times condemned Azerbaijan and has shown his support towards Armenia in relation with the Karabakh conflict. But I think that, as I said, given the current circumstances, the foreign policy agenda will not vary. Thank you for listening to me. Now I will be very happy to hear the speeches of my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Simona, for your detailed presentation of the current state of affairs of Italy and between Italy and Azerbaijan. And also you touched very goodly on how possible elections and its consequences can have an impact on Azerbaijan-Italian relations. Thank you so much. And now I would pass the floor to Valentina Shabbat for presenting her presentation. You can start whenever you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you once again for your introduction. Before starting with my presentation, I would briefly like to thank once again the Topchubashov Center for the invitation. Also on behalf of the Director of Opinio Juris, Domenico Nocerino, who unfortunately could not be present today, but who really cared about sending his warmest regards. Getting to the specific topic of the Italian posture toward the South Caucasus region, my intervention will cover Italy-Armenia relations and the interest Rome has with Yerevan. In particular, I will tackle three different aspects. First, cultural and historical relations. Second, economic connections. And third, political developments after the last elections in Italy, through which the right-wing coalition got power and Giorgia Meloni became prime minister. As concerns the first point, Italy and Armenia have secular-friendly bilateral relations, which date back to the links Armenia had with Venice at the time of Crusades. But centuries later, the connection with the city of Venice, or even better, with the Serenissima, persisted thanks to a marriage between Caterina Cornaro, who was the daughter of a noble Venetian family, and James II Lusignan, kings of Cyprus, Jerusalem, and of course Armenia. It was a union of great importance for the Serenissima that in the event of the king's death was able to inherit not only a kingdom but also a fundamental strategic domination over the whole Eastern Mediterranean. And this legacy endured until the present, and a significant Armenian community is still present both in Venice, specifically in San Lazzaro's Island, and in Naples, where the traces of Armenian art and culture are a living memory. But at the same time, Armenia has a great importance for Italy from a religious perspective too. As a matter of fact, Armenia was the first country to adopt Christianity back in 301 AD. And in Etchmiadzin Cathedral, a series of relics which are of greatest relevance for the Christian world are conserved. In this regard, there are traces of Noah's Ark, which, according to the legend, stranded on Ararat's mountain, which actually lies within Turkey's borders today. And the cathedral itself was built after Jesus Christ showed to Saint Gregory the Illuminator, of which some relics are conserved in Naples, the place in which the church had to be built by hitting the ground with a golden hammer. Therefore, over the years, the Armenian Church has maintained strong ties with the Vatican, and more recently, also thanks to the efforts of the current Pope, who recognized the Armenian genocide in 2015 and made a pilgrimage to Armenia, which was followed then by many official visits to Rome of the Armenian Patriarch. But actually, Italy-Armenia relations, apart from economics, which I will tackle in a moment, is not exclusively limited to the cultural sphere. What I found particularly interesting is the success story of cooperation within the framework of the United Nations interim force in Lebanon, deployed near the country's border with Syria and Israel. And more specifically, Italy and Armenia cooperated by dispatching military personnel and overall contributing to the peacekeeping operations in the region, which was later assessed as a positive experience of joint service by several defense ministries. When it comes to the second point of my intervention, well, there is a growing relation between Italy and Armenia from the point of view of economics. I recently had the opportunity to interview Vahan Kerobian, the Minister of Economy of Armenia, who mentioned that since 2021, the Armenian economy started recovering and specifically experienced a significant expansion during this year. And namely, as of October 2022, the GDP registered a growth of 14%, and this mainly happened thanks to a great inflow of Russian people who relocated after the outbreak of the conflict in Ukraine and who are active in the IT sector, which actually increased by 50%. But alongside the field of technology, the other two drivers of Armenian economy are the manufacturing sector and the internal demand. And here is where Italy actually comes. What Armenia is trying to do is to attract foreign direct investments, and Italy appears to be very active in this. And to be more specific, Italy and Armenia have a consolidated relation in the agricultural sector, which indeed is one of the leading sector in both countries. But specifically in light of Armenian goal to guarantee its food security, several governmental programs have been implemented in cooperation with Italy to incentivize gardening, greenhouse, crops, and more in general farming. So within this framework, Italy is exporting mainly know-how, machinery, and technology. And in exchange, Armenia has started selling products to Central Asian countries to promote Italian brands, which indirectly has also contributed to boost Armenian exports through the channel of the Eurasian Economic Union, of which Armenia is an active member. A further important sector in which Italy and Armenia strongly cooperate is the fashion industry and especially textile. To give you an example, during the last weeks, an Armenian delegation was invited to the Fashion Week in Milan, and then an Italian group of entrepreneurs came to Armenia to explore further ways of cooperation. But at the moment, a great number of Italian brands are actively working and producing their goods in Armenia. I am referring to Max Mara and Moncler, to cite some of the most famous ones. Reaching the last topic on which my intervention is focused, as you probably know, last September the Italian population was called to the polls, and after the election, the right-wing coalition, a new government was formed and Giorgia Meloni was elected prime minister. At this point, what I believe is a very interesting question may easily arise. So could the new government mark a paradigm shift in the relations between Italy and Armenia? And could the election have somehow an impact on the way Italy positions itself with respect to the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan over Nagorno-Karabakh? Before giving you my answer to this question, I think that there are two more factors that need to be mentioned. As concerns Armenia, specifically during the meeting I had at the Armenian parliament with some representatives of the ruling party, what was actually repeatedly underlined was the strength of Armenian democracy, which has consolidated especially after the 2018 Velvet Revolution and is now robust, as it is shown by the fact that the government has been elected twice in truly free, fair and transparent election. And the democratic asset is somehow an aspect that is shared with Italy, but also with European countries. And Armenia is actually proud of being a democracy. Therefore, it has this willingness to show it to what is generally called the West. On the other side, what is the actual situation in Italy is a strong relations with Azerbaijan, which of course has developed and has grown stronger after the war in Ukraine in the field of energy and gas, but not only limited to these aspects, as Simona previously said. From the part of Italy, a strict relation with the Armenian population, history and culture still exists, but Italy balances its position with respect to the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict with an energy dependence from Azerbaijan. Therefore, there is a high probability that Italy will maintain the status quo with regard to its foreign policy orientation in South Caucasus. But despite this, something is actually changing in some European countries. I am referring, for instance, to the resolution adopted in France against Azerbaijan and to some statements from some members of the European Parliament with respect to the clashes of last September. So if in the future a change in the public and political discourse of the European Union with respect to Azerbaijan would happen, then it is not excluded that Italy could eventually align with Brussels and thus modify its position toward the South Caucasus, also with simple statements. But at the moment, this is not happening, and I believe it won't happen in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina, for covering Armenian-Italian relations and touching on the very detailed aspects of each, the sphere that Italy and Armenia cooperate with each other, and also touching the possibilities of possible U-turn in the Italian politics, as you called it, a possible modification or adjustment. And thank you for a detailed presentation, and it's time to listen to Cesare Figa for his presentation on the current state of affairs between Italy and Georgia. Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks to the Topchubashov Center for inviting me. So I'll talk about Italy's interest in Georgia, which are probably, from an economic point of view, less important than they are in Azerbaijan, and from on the other side, cultural point of view, a bit less important than they are with Armenia. But still, they're important, and I'll be referring to both countries a little bit. So if we talk about simply the economic aspect, let's start with that. The trade turnover between Italy and Georgia is not particularly high. So in 2021, taking just 2021, for example, the export of Italy towards Georgia was around 123 million euros, mostly machinery and some products like petrol refined products like coke. If we look at imports instead from Georgia to Italy, in 2021, it was more or less 50 million euros, mostly agricultural products. So this is very little if we compare to the billions we have with Azerbaijan, which is, of course, mostly due to oil and gas. Georgia actually offers a really good environment for enterprises. The taxation is very low, especially compared to Italy. It's relatively easy to open a business and to run a business. So Italian companies could actually invest more and do more in Georgia, but up until now, they haven't really done that much. So there's a possibility to do more, but it still has to be taken as a possibility. Georgia is instead important from an economic point of view because it's kind of a transit country for oil and gas from Azerbaijan, basically. So we have both oil to the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, and also gas through TAP, which both go through Georgia, and then eventually reach the Italian market. So from an Italian point of view, it's actually important that in Georgia there remains quite political stability. Also, Georgia has two separatist territories, so South Ossetia, which sometimes is called the Tskhinval region, and Abkhazia. In particular, South Ossetia is quite close to Tbilisi and these critical infrastructure. So for Italy, it's important that the conflict doesn't actually reignite. And we can see that up until now, the government, so led by Georgian Dream in Georgia, has done this. So some people were speculating that a second front could be open now that Russia is in, like after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, since most of its forces are concentrated in Ukraine. Some people were speculating that Georgia could actually open a second front and at least try to retake militarily South Ossetia, impose sanctions on Russia and so on. But what the government has done until now is actually not impose sanctions on Russia. It did not put a visa regime on Russians coming to Georgia from Russia, and it did not open a second front, and neither does it intend to do so. So this is actually quite ideal from the Italian point of view, because there's no turmoil and no disruption of these critical infrastructure. So this is what is the main role for Georgia in relations to Italy as a transit country. In the future, it could be even more so, now that we see, for example, Russia's role in the Caucasus gradually diminishing. We don't know what the future has for us, but up until now we can see and predict that its role will continue diminishing. So we could see some other infrastructure from Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan go through the Caspian Sea, reach Azerbaijan, and then from Azerbaijan potentially go through Georgia to reach again the European markets, including Italian markets. So this would be again gas and oil exports, but also other product exports. Let's see, it's just a possibility, but with Russia's role diminishing and power diminishing, this could happen. These infrastructure could potentially actually also go through Armenia, especially in the south. So you would reach the south of Armenia, then Nakhchivan, and then Turkey. But this also depends on how relationships between Armenia and Azerbaijan go. So if there's a normalization of relationships, if that peace agreement is signed. So it's a bit a matter still of speculation. If the relations do not improve, then logically all this infrastructure would again go through Georgia. And this would increase again the importance of Georgia for Italy. Mostly as a transit country, as I said. Diplomatically, we have very good relations because we have no issues with Georgia. So Italy recognizes the territorial integrity of Georgia. It has continuously done so, and with the new government, it continues to do so. Italy does not have huge separatist problems, but we have some issues. For example, with Veneto, in the past, we had Lega Nord wanting, at least ideally, Northern Italian independence or autonomy. So we have our issues, so we tend to recognize the territorial integrity of other countries. I don't expect big changes with the new government because even if we still have Salvini now in the government coalition, the old Lega Nord, so the one that wanted autonomy or independence within Italy, has kind of faded away. So this is not a topic anymore. Even if a little bit also trivially, we have still in CONIFA, which is basically the football association for a non-recognized territory. We had Padania, so northern Italy and Sicily, participating, as well as Artsakh, South Ossetia, and Abkhazia. But still, Italy recognizes Georgian sovereignty, its territorial integrity, and this will not change. The relationships are very good. There is a South Ossetian representation in Rome, interestingly, but it's not recognized officially as such. In terms then of culture, we also have some cultural connections. For example, the Italian embassy in Tbilisi is quite active on this. So they can tend to translate, for example, books from Italian into Georgian. They do organize many cultural activities. We have an Italian school in Georgia, so the Italian language is taught also in some universities. And Italians, for example, participate also in archaeological works in Georgia. So Georgia is a quite very ancient country, more ancient than Italy, actually. And their Italian missions participate in these excavations. So from that point of view, the relations are very good. And I would also mention Italian soft power, which sometimes is considered a bit as a trivial thing, but I do not consider it such. So Italians tend to have a good reputation in the South Caucasus in general, and also in Georgia. So we tend to be likable people for them. They tend to like us. They would mention football, so Tbilisi mayor Kakakaladze playing in AC Milan in the past. Now we have Kvaratskhelia in Napoli. So all these small things actually create a good environment between people. So if you have a good environment between states, and then you also have a good environment between people, the two states, it makes business and having good relationships even easier. And this could actually be tapped upon. So Italy until now has probably not used all the possibilities it has in developing good relations, also from an economic point of view in Georgia. So aside from this transit aspect, it could actually do more, and this possibility of doing more. Then everything, I would just finally mention one thing, everything does not depend solely on Georgia and Italy. It also depends on other countries and the European Union more in general. So Georgia was not granted a candidacy status this year, but it was granted to Moldova and Ukraine. Why? So allegedly, because, and this is true, that Georgia is a semi-democracy. It depends. Some would consider a democracy, some a semi-democracy, one complete democracy anyway. So from the freedom of press point of view, the situation has been worsening. And for example, also the security of journalists has been worsening. So the journalists are facing more threats, more abuses. So some indicators of democracy values are diminishing. So for this, it was not, and other reasons, but this in particular, it was not granted candidacy status. Probably some people say it's a bit unfair since it was granted to Ukraine and Moldova, which on other issues are actually doing worse than Georgia, comparatively worse than Georgia. But still, this is the situation. We can interpret this also as a way of the European Union of not fully engaging with the South Caucasus at this political level, at least. So if we move from Italy to Europe and indirectly then to Italy, probably the European engagement and then Italian engagement in Georgia will be limited as kind of partners, but not part of the same group. So I don't think Georgia will ever join the common market of the European Union. It will not be a European Union member. So every relationship with Georgia will have to go through bilateral relations between Italy and Georgia. It will not have this easy entrance to our common market. So not everything depends completely on us. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Cesare, for your very detailed presentation on the Georgian-Italian relations. And you raised a very important point, which I want to ask as a follow-up question to all of you. And you talk about the role of Italy in the EU-Georgian relations in a more broader context. As the previous speakers mainly focus on the bilateral aspect of the relations, which was the topic of our roundtable for sure. But the thing is, what if we move to in a more broader context? And I would ask each of you for spare for a minute and maybe touch on the possible role that Italy can play in fostering relations between these three Caucasian republics with the EU in general, given Italy is an important member of the EU, and to some extent it is also a member of the European political community and NATO and Council of Europe, which are kind of four fundamental bodies representing a very understanding of the West. So in a more broader sense, how would you assess the role that Italy is playing in fostering the relation between the West as an institutional entity and the three Caucasian republics, if you would come in for it in a very briefly, that we can close our roundtable. Thank you in advance. And you can start on whatever order you want. Just, I think Cesare is willing to start, or.
Yeah, so Italy is one of the main members of the European Union, so it can have a role in this. In this, we have to consider also probably some internal contrast to the European Union. So in this case, Italy and France have very different approaches towards the Caucasus. Italy being very favorable to Azerbaijan and then of course also to Turkey, and instead France having a very critical approach both with Azerbaijan and with Turkey. As Valentina mentioned, the French Parliament just voted a resolution to recognize Artsak's independence and put sanctions against Azerbaijan for the September clashes. So this depends also on the balance of power between Italy and France, how it will tilt. But in all honesty, I think that after the war with Russia, so the Russians' invasion of Ukraine, now the European Union desperately needs more gas. So, for example, von der Leyen visited Baku. So von der Leyen went to Baku. There's lots of pictures. of President Aliyev with von der Leyen signing new agreements. There will be an increase, as Ms. Simona said, the gas export from Azerbaijan to Europe will actually increase now, and potentially a lot of people are looking at also the markets in Central Asia, so getting eventually maybe gas and from Central Asia, bypassing Russia. So in this sense, I think that both Italy and Germany can tilt European favor towards specifically Azerbaijan in this case. With Georgia instead, I think, as I mentioned, it's kind of they want to keep good relationships, of course. There will never be problems with Georgia, but I think that the direction is that they do not want them inside the European Union. I don't see Italy wanting Georgia inside the European Union anyway. It's less problems. It's less problems. Should we get, like, in their mentality, why should we get another country with separatist issues, more problems? Let's just keep relationships good. Okay, ease trade and everything, but I don't think it will become a member. I don't think Italy wants it. It doesn't really care. So I don't see Italy tilting the balance in this sense, because nobody really wants it. Hope this was sufficient. If you want more, I can say more later.
Thank you. If you have anything to add, you're more than welcome to add. But if the others want to follow up, and Simona or Valentina, they're more than welcome to add something. I think Simona is, Simona, you can start, and we can ask from Valentina.
Okay, I think that Cesare covered quite well this issue. And yes, I just want to say that Italy, thanks to the TOP, is becoming an energy hub for the European Union, and I don't see as likely that it will put this role at risk, especially in this period. At the same time, it's difficult that the European Union will have a unified approach towards the issues. There are some countries, as we said, as France, who are condemning Azerbaijan on, for example, the latest episode that took place last month, and also on other human rights issues and also other issues. But Italy usually doesn't take a stance on this. This doesn't mean that the Italian politicians act as in a just a homogeneous way, because of course there are some politicians that sometimes take stance against Azerbaijan, both at inside the Italian parliament and also at the European Parliament. But overall, I think that this will be the situation that we will face in the next years, and at least in the middle term. I see this as a possible continuation. Okay.
Thank you, Simona. And if Valentina, have you anything to add, please, the floor is yours.
Well, Italy, of course, has a role in the stabilization of the Caucasian region, according to me. Actually, I believe that Italy is in a very important position because it has the power to dialogue both with Armenia and with Azerbaijan, with, of course, different leverages. And concentrating mainly on Armenia and Azerbaijan, Europe has deployed a mission on the borders. The US then have stepped in, and in Armenia they are a strong presence, also in Azerbaijan, and many analysts wonder whether this is a genuine interest or just a way to fill the vacuum left by Russia, which is engaged in Ukraine due to the war. Therefore, what many analysts believe is that the US could hope that also through this mission on the border, Europe can have a stronger role in the region to foster stabilization. And within this context, Italy has a great history of mediator. Also, the Vatican has had the same role in the past. Therefore, according to me, of course, Italy can balance its interests and really take a stance in favor of peace and stabilization in the region, also within the European Union. But as my colleagues previously stated, Italy and Europe need gas, energy, and I believe that they will be engaged in the Caucasus unless until the energy relations will be restored in the future with Russia. And then we have also these problems, these internal tensions with France, who also due to the fact that it has a great Armenian diaspora within its borders. Now France has completely adopted a different stance, and within the European Union this could be a problem because it can generate tensions. So it's quite a difficult situation, but I agree with my colleagues that now the main point of discussion and the main thing that I believe is bringing Italy within the Caucasus is the energy issue and gas.
Okay, thank you for all of you for answering this question and for presenting your presentations. And now I think time has come to end our very interesting roundtable, which we had a lot of valuable discussions and interesting point of views about the Italian relations with all three Caucasian countries, namely Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia. Using this opportunity, I would like to once again thank to each one of you for taking your time, for getting your presentations ready, and for delivering your presentations, and for joining us at the Topchubashov Center for a virtual roundtable. I'm looking forward to see all of you in real time and to have a great conversation in the future and to cooperate with you in a more broader and a more broader region in a way. So thank you for each of you for participating, and it was nice to have all of you. And yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the event.
Thank you.
Thank you.